धारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य सुदर्शन श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय गौर प्रेमानंदी all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Yat Yat Shrotavyam Atho Japayam Yat Kartavyam Nribhi Prabho Smartavyam Bhajaniyam Va Bruhi Yadva Viparyayam Yat Shrotavyam Atho Japyam Yat Kartavyam Nribhi Prabho Smartavyam Bhajaniyam Va Bruhi Yadva Viparyayam Yat Shrotavyam Atho Japyam Yat Kartavyam Nribhi Prabho Smartavyam Bhajaniyam Va Bruhi Yadva Viparyayam Yat Shrotavyam Atho Japyam Yat Kartavyam Nribhi Prabho Smartavyam Bhajaniyam Va Bruhi Yadva Viparyayam Yat Kartavyam Nribhi Prabho Va Bruhi Yadva Viparyayam Yat Shrotavyam Atho Japyam Yat kartavyam nribhi prabho. Ladies, yat srotavyam atho japyam yat kartavyam nribhi prabho. Yam vajniyam va vriyad va viparyayam. Yat, whatever, srotavyam, worth hearing, atho, thereof, japyam, chanted, yad, what also, kartavyam, executed, nribhi, by the people in general, prabho, O master, smartavyam, that which is remembered, bhajaniyam, worshipable, va, either, bruhi, please explain, yadva, what it may be, viparyayam, against the principle. Translation, please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. Text 29. Nunam bhagavato brahman griheshu grihamedinam na lakshate hi avasthanam api go dohanam kvachit. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Saints and sages in the renounced order of life go to the houses of householders at the time they milk the cows, early in the morning, and ask some quantity of milk for subsistence. A pound of milk fresh from the milk bag of a cow is sufficient to feed an adult with all vitamin values, and therefore saints and sages live only on milk. Even the poorest of the householders keep at least 10 cows, each delivering 12 to 20 quarts of milk, and therefore no one hesitates to spare a few pounds of milk for the mendicants. It is the duty of the householders to maintain the saints and sages, like the children. So a saint like Shukadev Goswami would hardly stay at the house of a householder for more than 5 minutes in the morning. In other words, such saints are very rarely seen in the houses of householders. And Maharaj Parikshit therefore prayed to him to instruct him as soon as possible. The householders also should be intelligent enough to get some transcendental information from visiting sages. The householders should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is valuable in the market. That should be reciprocal relation between the saint and the householders. Text number 40. Sutta Uvacha. Evam abhyashita prashtah sa radnya sloknaya gira pratyabhashata dharmagnyo bhagavan badaranaya. Sutta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Shukadev Goswami. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Shahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Parishit Maharaj is saying, please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. So the Srimad Bhagavatam in this 3 shlokas is setting the stage for the most important dialogue which took place in human history. Here is the king, as we know the history, who is posing very relevant question. In fact, it is one of the most important questions one can ask. Prabhu explains that life, our entire life is about asking questions and receiving answers. What is the time now? Question. Right? What is there for breakfast today? The question. When will the class end? Is a question. What time temple opens? Question. Right? Wherever you go, when you go to doctor will ask you questions. What is happening to you? Right? Prabhupada says the stock market person asking, what is the stock, what is the Sensex today? Question. Right? And somebody gives you answer. You go to the purchase something, from the vendor, local vendor, you ask question. How much does rice cost and how much does, potatoes cost? So we are constantly actually in a phase of simply asking questions and receiving answers. That's the way life goes on. But not all questions are on the same level. Some questions are like children's questions are, Mummy, what is this? Mummy, ye kya hai, wo kya hai? Children's question, then mummy says something, okay, yeah, aisa hai, aisa hai. So child's questions are childish questions. So they do not have such a big importance, right? Why is this like that? Why is this black color? So the mummy will say something, why it is black color. So these are all childish questions. But what are really, really, really important questions to ask? Such questions are asked by great personalities. So great people ask great questions, and ordinary people ask ordinary questions, and foolish people ask foolish questions. So depending on what you are, will determine the quality of your questions also, right? So here we're talking about a person who is of the caliber of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Arjuna, who is the king of the world, the emperor of the world. So what is his caliber? Somebody who can run the entire, not a small state or a small country, but caliber to run the entire planet happily, peacefully. What is the caliber of his consciousness? So therefore, when he asks a question, such questions have great value. So he's asking a very, very relevant question. An important thing is to understand when he is asking the question, the time factor, right? Who's asking, where he's asking, and what is the stage of his life. So as we know, he's at the last scene of his life. As they say, like Shakespeare says, all life is a drama, and we're all on the stage playing our roles. And we should play our role nicely till the stage is on. When the curtain closes, the drama is over, right? So this is the last scene of his life. His last 7 days when he will live in this world. So at that time when you ask a question, you will not ask about what is the rate of milk. You will not ask what is in the fridge, right? You will not ask such stupid questions. When you're going to die, you ask some very, very relevant questions. So here he's asking, please, he's begging, Bruhi. Bruhi means to really please explain. That is what Bruhi means in Sanskrit. Please explain. Even Arjuna says this to to Krishna. Bruhi me tanme. Right? So what Bruhi is really artha bhav, to ask question to a superior. Bruhi, please tell me. What should I hear? I want to hear something. What should I hear? What should I chant? What should I remember? What should I worship? Right? So these are some questions coming out from his heart. And also please tell me what I should not do. In everything there are do's and don'ts, right and wrong, right? Vidhi and nishedh. So tell me what I should do, vidhi, but also what is nishedh, what I should not do, right? Like in any therapy also, eat this, don't eat this, do this, don't do this. So there is always vidhi and nishedh. So here, these questions are being asked by Parishad Maharaj. So Prabhupada considers this as the most important questions one has ever asked. What is the duty of a person about to die? Right? So is it relevant to whom? Is it relevant only to Parishad Maharaj? Who's about to die? We are all about to die. Right? It's a matter of time. Right? Everybody who has lived has died. Everyone who's living right now in the world will die. Everyone who will be born in the future will also die. So the highest truth of life is death. So therefore the question of death is not relevant to an individual. It is of universal relevance. Correct? Therefore the question for all of us to ask it, what should I remember, what should I... Kim japyam, kim smartavyam, kim kartavyam, what should I do? Right? It's for all of us to ask. So that is a stage, that's a beautiful stage which is being set. And because this question is very relevant, what comes out also, the question is so powerful, what comes out from the mouth of somebody great like Shukdev Goswami, the great son of Maharaj of Maharishi Ved Vyas, will also be the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is a reply to his question. Right? So, of course, we know the answer because we have read Bhagavatam, all of us understand. But the answer which will come out will be such which will actually lift the consciousness of the soul. All throughout life, a life is like a coconut. As the coconut grows, on the tree, it starts, we have seen small coconuts, right? They're so small, beautiful, nice green color, attached to the stem. And it grows. As it grows, the water starts creating inside. And it grows and grows. And it grows further. And you keep it there for long enough time, there will be also a kernel, the pulp. And the pulp size also increases 2 mm, 3 mm, 4 mm, getting up to 5 mm, sometimes even 10 mm thick. Right? Now, generally when it becomes ripe enough, coconut falls down or it is plucked out. Suppose we don't cut it for drinking purpose or for cooking purpose. You just leave it there. What happens? It becomes even more mature. It ripens further, ripens further, ripens further, right? At some stage, as it ripens further, the inner core, what we call as the pulp, what we call in Hindi language malai, that pulp separates from the inner surface. So when you do like that, you actually you can also hear the carvandi has separated out from the inner lining, right? It is now a dried up coconut. The water is practically dried up and the pulp has separated from the inner surface. So this is Prabhupada's understanding of the ripening of bhakti. When we are in the stage where now the pulp is thickly connected with the inner surface. So when you have to use a sharp object to, and you have to go to the bhaiya, then he actually has to cut, and he just forcibly separates out the malai, from the inner surface. But as bhakti becomes more ripened, if you hang on to the branch of bhakti, hang on to the, as we say, in our language we say, Namom Vishnu Padaya, right? As long as you hang on to the feet of the great acharyas, then your bhakti ripens, and then automatically the soul separates out from all its attachments to this material world. That is the process of ripening of bhakti. It's such a beautiful and practical example. And I loved it when I read about it. This really explains the bhakti process. So it's a very organic process. It's not a forced process. You just allow bhakti to grow naturally, and eventually, without even trying hard separately, we will lose our artificially created attachments to the things of this world, right? And when you get separated out, the soul doesn't have to take birth again because it has got no more desires. What governs our next life? If you do not reach this stage of ripening of bhakti, which Prakshit Maharaj will reach, he has got ripened bhakti. And as we can see, as we will see in the end of the 12th canto, the coconut is separated out completely from inside. For him, he is no longer sort of bothered in one sense about his imminent death. He knows Takshak will come. He knows he will be bit. Takshak is not a small water snake which we see, in the sea. It's a huge, powerful, one of the most powerful snakes in the world, right? Takshak. It has the power to kill millions of people at one time, right? Very powerful poison. But he's not really bothered about that because his coconut already his soul has separated out from its attachments. So he's living in the body, the soul is living in the body, but soul has got no connection with the body and the mind. It is just completely separated out. The soul is in its pure existence. It is in a pure state of Sat Chit Ananda existence. And because it is in that stage of being Sat Chit Ananda already, then whether the snake comes now or a little later and whatever else happens to the body is immaterial. Therefore, when the snake also bites, the body goes into fire. It becomes, there's a huge fire as the body of the king is burning, right? But even before that, before the body has burned, like we cremate the body in the crematorium. So even before the body is burnt, the soul already has left. Already left. Now what happens to people like you and me? We are not on the stage of Parikshit Maharaj. We are like that stuck coconut, which is not still in its ripened state. So how do we ripen bhakti? Bhakti is to be ripened. Prabhupada likened bhakti to ripening of the mango fruit, right? So he said we are all pure devotees. Only thing we are like the kacha mango and the pakka mango. So he thought about it as a fruit. Bhakti is like a fruit, ripened fruit. So here the Acharya says, Srotavya Kirtitavyascha Deya Pujyascha Nityada. Right? Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagwan Ishwaro Hari right? So when this is the process, Shrotavya, Kirtayava, Shruta means to hear, to chant, to glorify, Smartavya, uh, and to worship. So what should we hear? Shrotavya what? Exclusively hear only about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees. Because that is the only subject which the soul can relate to. The mind can relate to worldly things. What is this rate? What is that rate? What about my wife? What happens to my children? What about my LIC policy? What about my property? When all we are thinking all of these things, that means we are still at the level of the mind, which is bothered about the worldly affairs, right? But the soul cannot connect to LIC policy. The soul cannot connect to the property and the car and the gold you have in your locker. The soul cannot connect to all these things. The soul can only connect with Krishna because the soul is a part of Krishna. So qualitatively, the soul can only actually have an exchange in spiritual subject matters. Therefore, when we are about to die, or those of us who are understanding the value of this life, that I will die at any point of time, then we allow ourselves to ripen our bhakti by more and more feeding things which are connected with Krishna, because that is like a ripening agent. Hearing about Krishna like a ripening agent. It ripens our bhakti, as I was explaining. So here only about, not about worldly affairs, but here only about Krishna. That is why Srimad Bhagavatam is such an important scripture, because here all topics less than those glorifying Krishna and pure devotees are not given here. They are exclusively and deliberately and consciously kept away as against other scriptures of the lesser Puranas, which have a mixture of all sorts of subjects. Some worldly, some for elevation to heavenly planets, some karma kanda is there, some yoga sadhana is there, and some bhakti is there. So a lot of sort of mixture is there. Yoga, jnana, karma, mix, and some bhakti, pure bhakti. But here only pure bhakti is there. So the pastime is there, how this can activate, when we hear about Krishna, how it activates the bhakti within our heart. Bhakti is there. Rupa Goswami has clearly said that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi. Bhakti and love for Krishna is already there in the heart in a dormant state. So hearing about Krishna is like what? It is like a bhakti activator. It activates bhakti. The beautiful pastime is there of a great, great, great personality called as Yamunacharya. It's a very long story, but in the time we have, I'll briefly give you the principle which makes the story very relevant to today's discussion. So, son of Bhavasacharya, he was a small boy of 12 years, and there was a great debater in the kingdom of, he was called as Kolahala. Very proud debater, very favorite of the king. The king would extract taxes from those who he would defeat. She was really like a big confidant. This young child challenged Kolahal that I will debate with you. And there's a long story of how he actually defeated Kolahal by just simply asking 3 simple questions to him. That part we will not discuss, right? But the wager was, the king had pushed a wager to his wife that if the small child can defeat, this fellow is like my favorite debater, he is like the world conqueror, world champion, like a Digvijay, right? If the small child can defeat my Digvijay Pandit, Kolahal, then I will share half my kingdom with the winner. The queen had agreed. And they both had waited for the results to come. And when the courtroom saw that this Kolahal was defeated by a small child, half the kingdom was given to Yamuna. That time was not an Acharya. Yamuna was got half the kingdom of the king. So he was throned as a king, and at the age of 12 years. So, being very young, and he was born a Brahmana, he was not a Kshatriya, but then he trained himself to become adept of ruling a huge kingdom, right? So he became a very proficient king, very expert. And in his Gurukul, when he was less than 12 years old, he was admitted there in the Gurukul at the age of 5 years, and he was there for 7 years. He had learned a lot of scripture. He learned a lot of Shastra, had learned a lot of values about Sanatana Dharma. After that, because he became a king, gradually those things were there with him, but it slowly weaned off. Because now the responsibility of running a kingdom was so huge, right, that he couldn't spare time for any of his Krishna conscious activities. And now, as the story goes, he's an adult now. He's an adult king, and he has conquered even more land. He expanded the scope of the boundaries of his kingdom to even larger areas. And now he's a very powerful king. Now, kings need a lot of money to, rage a war and all that, right? So his grandfather saw, his grandfather's name was Natha Muni, said, my grandson has fallen down from his bhakti like anything. He used to be such a wonderful devotee of Krishna, of course not Krishna specifically, he was a devotee of Narayan, but yes, supreme personality of Godhead. And he has fallen back from that practices and is fully involved in Vishay, in Indriya Bhog. As a king, he has so much of facilities to enjoy, the good food, royal opulences, armies, palatial luxuries, and he's sort of wallowing in that. And in the process, he has put back his bhakti behind and is completely entrenched in the life of forgetfulness of bhakti and is involved fully in worldly pleasures. So Natha Muni became very sad. And therefore, before he left this world, he told his very confident disciple, I think his name was Ram Mishra, that please, before I leave this world, I have this one request. Get Yamuna back to bhakti. I don't want to see him as a successful king. I want to see him as a successful Vaishnava. Because that really paves the way for his elevation to the highest realms. As a king, he will live a great life and he will die, but he will remain empty-handed. His heart will be empty, bereft of bhakti. So then what Natha Muni does, Ram Mishra does, is a very interesting story. Now, how to meet the king? You cannot just walk into the king's darbar, right? There used to be a huge line, a huge queue of people who are wanting to see him. So that would take like a long time. But he knew that he has a favorite dish he likes, a type of green leafy vegetable. It's called as Tudu Valai in Tamil language. Tudu Valai, right? So he would get Tudu Valai and give it to the cook. He said, cook this for the king and tell him that this will give him a lot of sharp brains because he has to conduct his kingly activities. He needs a lot of active brain. So this shark is very full of minerals and nutrition. Prabhupada talks about milk today, right? Milk is a lot of nutrition. So this Tuduvala is like that, very nutritious. And it's true. In that time, so many years ago, it must be even more nutritious. Nowadays, the palak and all, we don't know what it contains, right? Nutrition questionable. So once he got this Tuduvala, he said, who gave you this? So there's a nice gentleman who comes and gives. He said, oh, very nice. So every weekend he's getting a Tuduvala supply, right? And he is liked so much. This is good for me and it's very good for my health, and he's enjoying it. And then deliberately Ram Mishra does not supply for a few days. So the king asked the cook, hey, where is the Tuduvala? He said, sir, that supplier is not coming, that person is not coming. So who is he? He just says he loves you and he wants to see the king very flourish in every way, good health and all. So he supplies, but he's not coming. So when he comes next time, call him. So now the king has called him. He has not come himself. The king has called him. So now that gives him advantage, right? The king is calling. So the next time he said, hey, you are not giving this, supplying to Duvalai, king is calling you. So the king calls him and said, who are you? He said, actually, I wanted to meet you. He said, yeah, I also wanted to meet you. He said, actually, I'm in big need of a lot of wealth for expanding my kingdom. He said, your grandfather has left behind a huge amount of wealth for you. And he's told me that I should tell this only to you, and that secret is well kept. And as you know, he's no more in this world. So I can take you, I can take you to the place, if you so desire, where the wealth is hidden. He said, okay, I want to leave it to you immediately right now. So Rameshwara takes the king out of the kingdom, and they keep walking. And as they're walking, so actually the wealth is so large an amount that it is kept in a place which is guarded by powerful snake, a mystical snake. And around the snake, there is actually a structure built which has got 7 huge walls. So we have to cross those walls, go to that snake, and then I will chant some mantras which will subdue the snake, and then we can extract the wealth and I'll give it to you. So now he's already earned the faith of this Nath Muni, right, of Rameshwara. So he's willing to follow him. He said, walk. He said, no, still more distance. And now the king is like tired, walking so much. And he just wants to rest. As he's resting, this very intelligent Rameshwara starts chanting the slokas of Bhagavad Gita. He starts chanting the slokas of Bhagavad Gita very melodiously, with great devotion. He starts chanting the verses. And as he's chanting these verses, something happens in the heart of Yamuna. Right? Slowly but surely, it activates his past life. Because as a child, he has relished, he has learned, debated, grasped, and digested this beautiful knowledge of the Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? But now he had forgotten. So he keeps on, then he said, okay, let's walk further. Then he's liking it. And again, when they take the next rest, again he starts chanting some verses of the Gita. Right? And as he does that, as I said, Sravanam of Krishna is a bhakti activator. It activates dormant bhakti. So the bhakti was there under the surface, it gets activated. Right? And then as he hears more and more of the Gita, the king says, where are we going? Where is the wealth? So then he reveals that the wealth is the wealth of Sri Ranganath Swami. And the snake is Ananta Shesha. And the 7 huge walls are the walls of the Sri Rangam temple. We are very close, my dear king. Please come. And as they go further, crossing the 7 walls of the temple, and when he sees Ranganath Swami's darshan, his heart overflows. And he cries tears of repentance for having neglected his prime duty of being a servant of the Lord, right, in his vain worldly pursuits of this material world. And then when he gets that wealth again, which was his cherished wealth of as a child, and then when he says, we should go back to your kingdom, he said, I don't want to go back now. His bhakti has now completely ripened. The coconut has separated out. And he no longer feels, I want to go back to my kingdom and enjoy what he was enjoying so much. Right? So this story is so powerful. So now the king is no longer Maharaj Yamuna. He relinquishes his kingdom and takes a saintly life. And from that he becomes the great Yamunacharya, spiritual master of Sripad Ramanujacharya. One of the greatest saints in the history of Vaishnava Sampradayas, of the Sri Sampradaya. And he wrote beautiful scriptures. One of them is, I think, Sutta Ratna, right? Which is even today relished by Sri Sampradaya Vaishnavas as one of the greatest scriptures ever written, glorifying the bhakti of Narayan. So in this way, hearing about the Lord actually imperceptibly. However, even though this is true, there is a quality to the hearing. It is not passive hearing. It is not just, okay, okay, bolte jao, bol, sun raha hu, bolo, 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 bolo. It is not like that. It is actually being absorbed. When you see Parishit Maharaj, as we will see in the next canto, right? When he hears from the lotus mouth, Srimukha of Shukdev Goswami, he is not just passively saying, where will he end? Right? He is not saying like that. He is fully absorbed because it is actually reaching his soul. And his soul is relishing. And as that rasa of bhakti is nourishing his very soul, he slowly loses connection with the outside world, and he has no more feeling that I am thirsty, I have not drank water for a long time, or I'm actually hungry now. Maybe I should take a break. He said, can we take a break, half an hour break, and we'll come back. No breaks. It is one of the most amazing pastimes of this world, where several thousands of sages, along with Maharaj Parikshit, had a 7 days, we have this Bhagavad Saptas concept, right, where everyone takes a break, goes to rest for some time, regenerates himself, and again 3 hours in the evening. It wasn't like that. This is our modern version, because our capacity to hear is so limited. The real version of the thing is that where you are actually so absorbed in hearing that you don't take a break. It's day and night, just simply doing one activity. What is that? Hearing, and more hearing. Right? So, this is called as a bhakti activator. And therefore, Prabhupada has stressed this, and the Bhagavatam also stresses this, Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. When we hear this regularly with a state of absorption. Now, what does absorption really mean? Absorption means that when there is an awareness of the imminence of death, then our absorption is even more stronger. The strongest absorption when we are about to die, right? So, when we are not aware about our imminent death, then our absorption is very casual. But when we chant Hare Krishna mantra, like Radha Maharaj would do that, and I remember it distinctly, we were at the terrace of Srinathji Prabhu several years ago, maybe 1990, right? And we were singing the Mahamantra. And we were sitting there on the terrace beautiful terrace, a nice program. And then Maharaj said, he has this very great ability to make us intensify our bhakti. He said, let's chant loudly Hare Krishna mantra, millions of times louder, and he said, millions of louder. He says that, right? So when he was chanting the mantra on the harmonium, he said, now these 5 last mantras, chant them as if you are about to die. How will you chant if you're about to die? And these are the 5 last mantras you're allowed to chant before you die, right? And then the amount of energy which he pumped into the kirtan, right? And when it was like, Hare Krishna, in completely helpless state. When you are about to die, it is not casual, it is not just smiling, laughing, and giggling away, right? It is actually coming not from your throat, from your lips, from your tongue. It's coming deep from within your heart, in a very helpless state of consciousness, right? And we chanted with that. At least we attempted. I don't know where it came from the heart, from the lungs, I don't know where it came from, but we did make some attempt, I remember, to really chant as helpless as we can. And then in that particular gathering was a young, tall man called as Rajnikant. And the Rajnikant was sitting there and he was chanting, right? And Rajnikant actually chanted from his heart. And the next he decided, enough is enough. His coconut separated out. Rajnikant's coconut separated out just by those 5 mantras. He said, enough is enough. And he was a speech therapist, audiologist, right? He had done his master's degree in speech and audiology. He was working in Bangalore, right? And he decided, no more going back to that life now. And he transformed into Radha Gopinath Das. Haribol. So today he is one of the finest, senior most devotees in this temple. And that came out because his bhakti got activated by Japyam, as it says here. Atho yad shrotavyam yad aho atho Japyam. What should I chant? Of course, we know what to chant. We don't chant anything. We chant only one loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So this, when we chant every day regularly, with absorption, with the awareness of the imminence of death, then actually it activates our dormant soul's bhakti. Bhakti is the energy of the soul. Bhakti is the very energy of the soul. And to even prove this principle even more further, there is still another even more stronger example of how bhakti activates through hearing. The story is about Mother Sita. The Mother Sita is an extremely precarious situation which no woman would ever want to be in. Of all the scriptures, Mahabharata and Ramayana, Mother Draupadi and Mother Sita, these two great personalities in the female body, they have gone through experiences which no woman would ever want to get into. The greatest amount of misery any woman has suffered is Draupadi and Sita. Right? Draupadi, Asat Sabha, vicious assembly in the Kuru Darbar, we know what she went through. Right? Something which you cannot even imagine happened right in the public arena. And Mother Sita is in a place which is the garden of Ravana, the most powerful Rakshasa in the universe. Surrounded by not nice, and she's not staying in a palace. She stays under just one Shin Shupa tree. I think the tree is still there probably. She's sitting under that tree. She doesn't have a house to stay. And 10 months of her incarceration has passed away. And she's surrounded by some very vicious, dirty-looking, ugly-looking Rakshashis. Rakshasas which have got headless Rakshashis, which have got eyes on their chest. Rakshasas which have got eyes on their nose area. Rakshasas which have got one ear and one eye removed. Right? Rakshasas which have got their mouth in the forehead. And which have got ugly-looking creatures. They're like monsters. Right? They are not human bodies. They have got bodies, mixture of different animals. So it is unbelievable. And they were specifically on duty for scaring Sita in such a way that she would surrender to the whims and fancies of Ravan. And at this point of time, having not heard anything from Ram, nothing about Lakshman, what is happening, and she is in a strange place. She doesn't even know where she is. She doesn't know where she is, right? Which part of the earth she is. She knows she is in Ravan's Nagari, but where is this and connected to the planet? She has no idea geographically whether anyone will ever reach her. So, it's unimaginable for anybody to be in that situation. And everyday threats of death and violence and killing. And of course, at this point of time, somehow or the other, Hanuman has crept in, slapped Lankini. Lankini is the god, like the presiding deity of, so he slapped him. He said, okay, now you have slapped me. Brahma had said that when somebody comes and slaps you, there will be the beginning of the fall of Lanka. So, entry allowed, right? So she is humbled by the slap of Hanumanji. Anyway, this long story, Hanuman keeps on, he becomes so small, a small cat-like structure, and he just goes around everywhere. And at last, he understands that Sita is in Ashok Vatika. But how does he really go and confront Sita? Because he knew for sure that in whatever form I go, she will always suspect this is Ravan. Ravan was such a trickster, right? So now he had become a small struck organism, and he was just behind one leaf on the tree. It was very small, just small enough to hide behind a leaf in a monkey form, right? And then he sees a loud banging of sounds, dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. And he's thinking, what's happening, right? And of course, the powerful king Ravan is coming. And there's a dialogue. And Ravan is so abusive, so sadistic, right? And he's such a hard-hearted person. The way he deals with Mother Sita is so painful to hear, the way he speaks and deals with her. He said, if you don't surrender, I will eat you for my breakfast, right? You have only 2 months more remaining. And he speaks all wild words, cruel words, very unholy words to a saintly lady like Mother Sita. And she is so oppressed. She is so much suffering emotionally, physically, every way. She's simply suffering, right? And then he goes away and tells these ladies around, not ladies, I don't know what they are, Rakshashis, right? That you enhance your torture and see that she very soon surrenders to me. So they use any method to make Sita surrender. And all this is being observed by our Hanuman. And he is thinking that I should go down and punch all these Rakshashis and just destroy them immediately. But he doesn't want to do that. It's not the right time. The first thing is to give the message of Ram. He's come as a Ram Duta. He's not come as a destroyer. That he can do afterwards if he wants to. But his primary thing was to give the message that Ram is well and is alive, and he is actually going to come with a whole army of Sugriva. So the giving of he was supposed to be Ram's messenger, right? First thing first the message. So if he creates a chaos there, he cannot give the message. So he's hearing all this, and Sita is hearing, and she is so tormented, and then she does something very, very painful. She looks at the tree up, and she takes her long braided hair, she pulls down a branch, puts that hair around her branch, puts another part around her neck, right? And she's about to end her life. Because she cannot just anymore handle this torture and suffering and embarrassment and humiliation. She's about to end her life, right? And as she's doing that, and the moment she releases the branch, she will hang from it. And Hanuman is seeing this, and as Hanuman is seeing all this, he's wondering how to react to the situation, right? And he's getting millions of thoughts at one time. How to prevent Mother Sita from doing the last act of ending her life, right? And from the top, Hanuman is the most intelligent being ever born in this world. The most intelligent person ever born is Hanuman, right? He knows exactly what to do, at what time, and how to do it, right? He's extremely intelligent personality, right? At the nick of time, he starts chanting, glorifying the form of Lord Ramachandra. So that his beautiful body, of course that is all in Sanskrit, or maybe in Awadhi, it is in Awadh language. Because Awadh language, no Rakshashis could understand. And that language, Sita immediately connects, she's from Awadh, she's from Ayodhya, so she immediately connects to that language, right? So he chose that language. He could have spoken in Sanskrit also, right? But he spoke in Awadh language. Because Ravan can also speak in Sanskrit, right? So first of all, that language was important because Ravan does not know Awadh language. And therefore Ram started speaking, and Hanuman knew all languages. He was not from Ayodhya, he is from Kishkinda, right? But he is trained by Surya, and when he was with Surya, he is a disciple of Surya, Vivaswan, and he had learned all languages from him, right? So he started speaking in Awadh language. And he speaks Awadh language and describes Ramachandra's form, his shapely body, completely symmetrical, his short neck, his waist, his broad chest, thin waist, right? And his effulgent emerald green color. of his body. They explain that it is effulgent emerald green color of his body, right? And his beautiful eyes, and an ability to actually, mesmerize anybody, including Kamadev himself, and describes the entire Leela of Ramchandra's childhood pastimes, right? What about his childhood, right? And then about his adulthood and how he was banished. So he starts narrating all these Leelas, and as she hears this, she gets so absorbed in hearing Ram Katha, Shrotavya, again, she's hearing, and she disconnects from her hand and unwinds her neck from her braid, right? And she just sits down. And she's so absorbed. She doesn't know where the sound is. She's looking up. She can't see anybody. But he keeps on pouring. He keeps on pouring out nectar. He keeps on pouring nectar of Rama Leela, interspersed with his own sort of activities. There was a Vanara whom Sugriva's Ram joined hands with, and there's one of the Vanaras actually jumped across the ocean, and he managed to skip the security systems of Ravan, which is very, very tight security, the tightest security you can even imagine. Any city was there, and he bypassed all that, and he has come to meet you. So in this way, that actually puts Sita in such a sense of relief and consolation, right? That she not only gives up her desire to end her life, but actually, for the first time, her love for Ram is nourished with positivity. Till such time, she was being brainwashed by these Rakshashis that, you know what, your Ram is already dead. And that's why he's not coming to you. You think if he was able to come to you because he was only if he was alive, he's already dead and gone. So your waiting for him to come is vain and in futility. But then when he hears Ram is well, and he misses me, Ram missing me like anything, the way I miss Ram in separation from him, crying for him, he is crying for me also, right? So when she feels Ram's love for him, for her, right, she gets hope that all will be well, right? So this is the power. Now this story is so powerful. Why? Because Sita Maiya is Bhakti personified. She is herself the goddess of Bhakti. But Shrotavyam can also activate Bhakti in one who is Bhakti personified. She is trying to end her life and put into oblivion, right? And yet, by hearing about Ram, her love for Ram is activated again, right? So this is the power of hearing. And therefore, the ability to speak and to hear is the two most important faculties which we should always be very grateful to the Lord for. Even if our hands and legs may not work. Yesterday I had a patient who had a stroke, and this lady was in such emotional trauma because after the stroke her hands started moving, her legs started moving, but she lost her voice. So she's able to understand what we say. He said, "Hath upar karo." She could do everything she could do, but she could not speak. For the last 3-4 weeks, she's admitted in some other hospital, and then they came to us for better care. But I was able to understand this, that what is the vyatha of a person who can understand the whole world, all the but she cannot express. She wants to speak a million things, right? But she just can't say a single word. She can say that's all, right? So if all of us have the ability to speak and to hear, that is the most important faculty which we should really take care of. Because we want to hear about Krishna and we want to chant Krishna's holy names. These two faculties, Shrotavyam and Japyam, right, are the two activities we'll keep on, if we keep on doing regularly, will, as I said, activate the dormant bhakti of our heart and take us towards the fulfillment of our very life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions?